Was your budget request this amount? That's in the budget? Is that what you requested? Did you make a request to the governor's office that was equal to this or the SEI line item?
No, it was slightly higher.
Can you tell us how much? I'm just trying
I
to
can
get
tell you after the fact. I don't know exactly what we submitted. Do you have it with you?
because
I can-
I just have a feeling we're in this cycle that we're not escaping and concerns of the contract, once the contract is settled in arbitration, that we don't have funds available for it. Was that in your request? Some funds for it?
No, I don't know that we put funds in for that. I would say that what our assumption is based on this budget that we're testifying to, coupled with the supplemental, absent the if there's a pay increase in the contract, we're confident that we can make that budget.
Okay.
Now, the pay increase is the unknown.
Okay. I have genuine concerns. I mean, I heard in response to Representative Struzzi that your staffing complement will remain level, but we know we will have increased cost as their contracts change. I also heard you in discussions with Representative Topper talk about costs expected to continue to increase in specific areas. And we also heard about the arbitration that sometime will be finalized, that we are going to have cost increase here. I'm not faulting anybody. And in fact, earlier, Secretary Wetzel and I had discussed what I feel is one of the larger issues is overtime costs. And I know Mr. Ottman is going to work up some information for us, for Chairman Saylor and Chairman Bradford, as well as others, to analyze overtime costs a little bit better, because that is a big factor in this whole process. When we sit down and look at the SEI line item itself was 2.043 last year. We spent 2.118 after we add on the $75 million supplemental. This year's budget is back to 2.043. It has to concern you. I mean, it concerns me. I know you had said that you didn't get what you asked for last year, but we used what the governor gave us. We voted for 140 to 62, I think, was the vote on the budget, and the governor signed it. That's a budget that we have to adhere to. I just have concerns about this roller coaster that we continue to seem to be on with corrections of not being able to nail down a budget number. You had said, Secretary, earlier he said he was watching PCN, and he told me earlier he watched me on PCN the other night. I really think you need a life, John, but...
You're not the first person who's told me that, by the way.
But one of the things I had said on PCN the other night is the budget is not a suggestion. It is a spending plan. And we want to work with you to find out what the right number is. But we've got to stop the roller coaster any way we can. The fiscal gimmicks, the sleight of hands, that all got to stop. We need to find a number that we all can live with and know that it's a realistic number moving forward. Because once we have it nailed down, then we continue to go forward with realistic budgeting.
Yeah, and if I can just respond
Certainly.
real briefly. As far as the contractual raise, I mean, when you look at this budget, that raise is the unknown. And again, this is not an executive, this is not a Republican, Democrat. Every administration since I've been here for 9 long years has chosen not to put a number in the budget because they don't want it to impact, increase, or decrease what that potential raise is.
I understand there's negotiations.
But that $50 million is the unknown. A member earlier, and I apologize, forgot his name, talked about putting a number in for unexpected costs. I would something that embarrassingly I had not thought of. I think it really makes sense. I mean, when you look at locking down a system for drugs, keep in mind that was driven by having 30 officers sent out exposed to K2. If that happens again, we don't make cost decisions as it relates to safety. So I would be a big advocate for putting some money in reserve for unexpected emergencies within corrections, and I would even be happy to give you a suggestion at what that should be. And I don't know. Certainly, I haven't discussed this with the administration, so I may be in trouble here in a minute. Apologize.
Well, in all
apologize
honesty,
out there. But I think, to your point, I agree with you. We don't take. I mean, we take our budget stewardship seriously. I mean, if you look at our increase over the last 6 years, it's been 2.5%. I'm proud of that. You look at You know, even under the Corbett administration, which we weren't handing out money in the Corbett administration, it was 5%. We work hard at driving that cost down, but we also have to deliver a constitutional level of services. So I don't disagree with anything you say,
and I get that.
I really try to budget honestly.
And what I would say also is that if we could have, if you let the administration know, maybe by that point in time, before this budget is done, these arbitration things are done, and you have a better idea of where you're at, because you know, if the governor comes down with a number, you know, once it's established, then it is your responsibility. I mean, you are going to be held accountable to that number, and you should be.
Yep.
Like I said, this is not a suggestion. Yes, Secretary Slade.
And Chairman, if I may, and this is, I think it dovetails nicely for the reason why I said that we are here and we're presenting and we intend to participate in these hearings moving forward. But I believe it was Representative Kinsey who had mentioned about empirical data about rehabilitation. And as many of you may note in my testimony, I speak about, I'm one of the few folks here who was in the Department of Corrections on the other side as an inmate formerly. So I know certainly the Department of Corrections and SEI Chester in particular, they did a wonderful job at doing what they do. But in addition to that, and the way that we're marketing ourselves as the Board of Pardons is, in addition to what I got while incarcerated and while on parole, the fact that I knew about clemency, and clemency was that additional carrot for me. Essentially, we serve as that release valve for anyone that's entering the penal system. So I think you'll see more successful outcomes and less recidivism as more people look at clemency as a viable option. Certainly, it's not something that we're not like Oprah and giving them away to everyone. Don't look under your chair. But for those that merit a second chance, they look at that and they're more inclined to not recidivate. And even if we're talking about public safety, or we talk about correctional officers, the safety of correctional officers. As I've mentioned, that New York law study, the last 40 years, there were just a handful of folks being commuted. And at the end of the day, the OVA is baked into our process, so victims' rights and their input is certainly something that's considered. And I think that will be advantageous for correctional officers because we say very clearly when an applicant comes before us, especially lifers, that if you got a misconduct, in particular a misconduct of an assault against an officer, you have no way in hell of receiving commutation. So I think it will help with compliance and help with safety. So and we've, as I put in my testimony in the supplemental materials, we've seen an uptick in the number of applications that we received just from year one. Historically, we've never eclipsed over 600 applications a year. 2019 alone, and we eclipsed 1,100, and we're on pace to go to over 2,000 this year. So the more people that are aware of this process, the more deserving people that are aware of this process, I think you'll see a benefit not only in recidivism, but also safety for correctional officers. And then lastly, I would state and give the offer to every legislator here, we would be more than glad to hold pardon clinics in your respective districts and counties.
Thank you, Secretary. And in conclusion, and I think Secretary Wetzel knows this very well, I'm a very outcome-based person. And I think if we continue to measure all of our outcomes, we can find ways to manage our budgets a lot better. And this is a budget hearing, so.
And real quick, just because you brought it up. So recidivism rates, when we talk about those that go through the clemency process. So we've only been capturing this data since 2015 to present day. So from 2015 to December 31st of 2019, approximately 2,400 folks have received clemency. That's both pardons and commutations. Only 61 of them have been arrested of a new crime. And we're not, because we don't have the personnel, and that's part of the reason why we're here to ramp up personnel. All of those 61 folks didn't result in a conviction. So just based off of those numbers, it's about 2.8% recidivism rate for those that go through the clemency process. So we think that's very compelling, and we would like to drive those numbers even. We would like to take advantage of that. So just wanted to add that since you did mention, but I think recidivism rates.